All right, so we are continuing our series about the kingdom of heaven, and what the kingdom of heaven is like. And now Jesus teaches often in parables. And we said that parables are illustrations or stories. Oh, by the way, this is going to be like, there's a funeral here tomorrow. I didn't do it. Like, so the florist dropped it off. So you're like, dude, Peter, normally you come over here, but the flowers are in the way. And I'm like, so, it's going to be probably more of a distraction for me than for you. But anyhow, that's what those are. Thank you for leaving the flowers for us. We appreciate that. That's if you're viewing online. So parables, they're stories or illustrations that Jesus gives us in order to help some of us who are meant to understand it, the ability to understand some sort of spiritual truth. And it conceals truth from those it's meant to be concealed from. God is a God of justice and mercy. If people are like, hey, God, I mean, if you're there, cool, whatever, but I'm not really very interested in what you have to say, God isn't overly fussed about explaining himself to you. Let's just be honest. Like, if you and I hang out, or we're like in the same space, and I'm not really interested in what you have to say, are you going to take that much time to try to elaborate your point to me? Or are you going to go, okay, well, I'm just going to talk to the people who want to talk with me? You'll probably say, I'm just going to spend time talking to the people who want to talk with me rather than badgering someone who's disinterested, right? So if you're sitting here like, I never understand anything God has to say, I might ask, do you ever properly give him your attention? Do you give him the same kind of attention you might give your football club? The same kind of attention you might give that new video game that you want to finish within 36 hours? Do you give him the same kind of attention you give that work project or that DIY thing you've got going on? Or whatever it is that your mind happens to be fixating on. Do you give God that same amount of attention? My experience is that when I give God my attention, it's not uncommon that he has something to share with me. Because that's generally how conversations go. Generally. Right? So, if someone is disinterested in what God has to say, God's not overly concerned about explaining himself to that person. If someone is interested in what God has to say, God tends to be quite keen to explain things as best as we might be able to understand them. Now, if God is infinite, eternal, and immortal, it will be very difficult for me, a finite, temporal, mortal person, to understand him. Because he's too big for me to contain. Right? But he gives us illustrations and pictures and stories to help us. And Jesus is giving us these illustrations, these pictures, these stories to help us understand what the kingdom of heaven is like. What is the kingdom? What does Jesus mean by the kingdom of heaven? What he means is the reality that God has authority over creation, over the whole world. Some people acknowledge that authority and live in the kingdom like as a citizen, as a willing participant. They experience all of the blessings and the benefits of God's authority in creation. And then others live in the kingdom, but they don't recognize God's authority. They don't recognize his kingship. And so they live in rebellion to the king, just like we might see here on earth. In the United Kingdom of Great Britain, there are plenty of people who live acknowledging the political and governmental authority of His Majesty and His Majesty's government. And there are plenty of people who don't. Right? And so Jesus is telling these stories to say, actually, in the kingdom of heaven, where God and Jesus himself has authority, there are those who experience its benefit and its blessing, and there are those who reject it and rebel against it. And they live side by side, and they hang out together, and they live life alongside one another, but there will come a time where there will be a sort of a delineation. There will be a separation. This is the wheat, and these are the weeds. These are the good fish, and these are the bad fish. And the wheat, the good fish, they're going to experience eternally all of the blessings and benefits and the good things of the kingdom of heaven. And those who've rejected God's authority are like weeds or like bad fish. They're going to experience the kingdom of heaven as a bad thing, as a judgment. It will be a negative, no good, very bad experience for them. That's a reality. The kingdom is a reality. The gospel is not like a suggestion, it's a declaration, it's an explanation of the way things are. And we can accept that explanation or we can reject it. In accepting that explanation, we have the opportunity to experience and receive all of its benefits. If we reject that explanation, it's like rejecting gravity. You're going to fall and hurt yourself. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It just is, and you will fall. Right? The kingdom doesn't care. I mean, God does, because he loves us. But the kingdom is the kingdom. Right? And so now we're going to look at two other stories or two other illustrations that Jesus gives us about the kingdom. Chapter 13 of the Gospel of Matthew, verse 44, Jesus is speaking. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Now with parables, again, we want to be very careful not to try to parse out every little single detail, but we want to get the general idea of it. All right, the general idea of it. Now, I don't know if you does anyone here like to go antiquing? You know, you're like, hey, it's a beautiful Saturday. Let's walk along West Street and go into the antique shops, you know? I'll be honest, every now and again, I'm a bit curious. I like to walk in. I'm not going to lie. I'd like to be like, I'm too cool for that, but I'm not. I'm a nerd, okay? And old stuff is kind of cool. Old stuff is pretty cool. And every now and again, you're walking down West Street. I mean, not often because, the work's going on. And you see, there's the one that's always got the cool guitars in it. You know what I'm talking about? It's on the, yeah. We know. We're like, oh, man, that's a cool thing. And every now and again you walk past an antique shop, you're like, that is cool. And often we think, that is cool, and we follow up that thought with, I'd like to have that. Right? Maybe it's not an antique shop. Maybe it's like you're browsing online and your cookies are such, and there's a pop-up. You're like, dude, the other day, okay, embarrassing. I was doom scrolling on something. I can't remember what. But there was an advert for these light up water guns, these water pistols, and they're like pew pew pew. They make sounds and they shoot water and bursts like it's electric, and it lights up, and it was pretty awesome. I was like, that is cool, because I am deep down inside a nerd. And then my next thought was, I'd like to have that, And so I did. I clicked it. I clicked the thing. I was like, oh man. And I was probably made in China. It's probably terrible. It's probably, no offense to Chinese production, it's probably one of those things where if I got it, I'd be really unimpressed with its actual performance. But yeah, you see something, you go, dude, that is cool. And your next thought is, I'd like to have that. And then your next thought is, what's it gonna cost me? What's it gonna cost me? That's cool. I'd like to have that. What's it going to cost me? And it might be a new pair of shoes. It might be a house. It might be a car. It might be a jumper. It might be some sort of clickbait thing online. That's cool. I'd like to have that. What is it going to cost me? And that's what these parables are all about. This dude finds a treasure hidden in a field. Now, let's be honest, have you ever found something cool out in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever, like, me and my buddies when I was a kid, maybe we dumpster dived. I don't want to talk about it, but maybe we did it. You know, jump in a dumpster and see if there's cool stuff in there. You know? And you do a little dumpster dive when you're like 10 years old. Where were your parents? Being good parents and letting us do dumb stuff, that's what my parents, yeah, that's where they were. Shouting on the front porch, Peter, it's time for lunch, okay? But you find something cool. One time we were out in like a little tree line outside around a field that was near my, like just by my house, and we found it was in the spring. There was a rubber tire, like a car tire. And there was water that had frozen because it was winter and it was spring and it was thawing. And inside this tire, you wouldn't believe it, I found like 20 uncashed checks. I was like, oh my gosh, I am rich. This is incredible. I found all these checks. And I was like, how am I going to cash these checks? I'm like 12 years old. Is this you? Yes, all of them are me, I promise, banker. Just give me the money. No, as I had that moment, this is cool. I want this. How am I going to get it? Right? And so we ended up, I told my parents like a good kid, and then we brought them in, and we called the local police and said, I found these checks, and someone, oh, how lame. It was the right thing to do, though. But I thought, I found money. Have you ever found something really cool? And it's like, nobody's around. Homie in the parable could have been like, this is my treasure now. See you later. But he didn't. He hid it, and then he sold everything he had in order to then buy the field. Now, this isn't necessarily a story saying you can't steal the kingdom, although I think that is a point that is made. The kingdom isn't something you can get on your terms. The point is, guy is in a field, finds a treasure, he goes, this is cool. I want this. What's it going to cost me? What do I need to do so that this thing can be mine? So that this thing can bless me, right? No one's like, ooh, there's a rusty knife that looks like it's got dried blood on it. I'd like to have that for me. You're like, that's hazardous. I think that's probably something I'm going to leave alone. Right? You see something cool. It's going to be a blessing to you. You're like, how do I get that blessing? How do I obtain that for myself? So he goes, sells everything he has, and buys the field, gets the treasure. Again, there's this guy. He's a merchant looking for fine pearls. This dude, he's not just stumbling onto something. This guy knows what he's looking for. He's spent his life looking for that good thing that's going to give him or get him what he wants. And he finds this incredible pearl. He's like, this is what I've spent my life searching for. And can I tell you, I think most of us spend our lives spend. I don't mean spend as in like we just like let the duration of our life unfold. I want to talk about spending really, really deeply in just a moment. We spend our lives for something that we think will bless us in return. Something that will give us fulfillment. Something that will give us value. Something that will give us satisfaction. Something that will make us proud of ourselves when we look in the mirror and when we show up at the pub or stand in front of others or around others. And when I mean we spend our lives, what I mean is all of us have a certain amount of time and we don't know how much or how little it is. I might not ever be able to be as old as Wilf. We presume I probably got another 40 years maybe or so. I don't know that. I might be called up this afternoon, for all I know. That's just how life is. But we've got this finite amount of time. And we have this finite body that sometimes is healthy and sometimes isn't healthy. Sometimes it breaks. Sometimes it gets sick. Sometimes it works right. Sometimes it doesn't work right. And we've got our emotions, and we've got our soul, and we've got all this stuff. We've got this life. And then we spend it. It's a resource that we then allocate, because that's what expense is, that's what spending. We allocate it to different activities. That might be your education. What are your exam results? That might be athletic performance. What team are you on? Are you on the starting 11? Do you travel? That might be your job, your career, like how much you make or what position you hold or what your title is or where you commute to work or that you don't have to commute because you can work at home, whatever it happens to be. It might be relationships, who your boyfriend or your girlfriend is, who your spouse is, how pretty they are, how handsome they are, how much money they make, how supportive they are, how this, how that, how the other. Well, I want to get kids because kids will prove that I'm a decent human being. And I'll just get all the ticks. I'm going to spend my life trying to get all of the different sort of proofs that I'm okay and all of the different things that I think will give me value and prove me to myself and to others. And so we stay up late. We get up early. We make money. We spend it at the pub, we spend it on ASOS, we spend it on clothes, we spend it on our housing, we spend it on our transportation. We do all of these things. We spend ourselves to get something that we think will bless us, give us fulfillment, satisfaction, meaning, purpose, value in this otherwise meaningless life. For most people around us. A life where it's like, what is this all about? Is it just, I'm born, I do the best I can with what I have and try to enjoy it the best I'm able until I die, whenever that is? Is that it? Or is there more? So this guy, this merchant, this pearl merchant, he's like, I know what the good thing is. I know what I'm looking for, and I've found it. I found it. And so I'm going to sell everything I have to get it. That's what the kingdom of heaven is like. Life under God's loving authority is like that. Life under God's loving authority is that good thing, and you might stumble onto it, or maybe you've been searching for it. But if you've found it, if you've identified it, listen, you're like, that is cool. I want that. What's it going to cost me? And here's the cold, hard fact that everybody knows, and I think everybody knows it so well, it's why most people aren't Christians. It will cost you everything. It will cost you what you used to believe or what you currently believe. It will cost you the gods you serve. And those might be literal gods. They might be metaphoric gods. They could be gods of other religions. It could be your education, your career, your income, your physicality, your relationships. It will cost you everything you serve in order to then obtain the blessing and benefits of God's loving rule and reign. That's just the cold, hard fact. And most people I share my faith with, actually, when it really boils down to it, that's what they know. And I appreciate their honesty. Like, actually, Peter, if what you're saying is true, then Sunday morning I probably should come to church. And I just don't want to on a Sunday morning. Like, and I'm not like coming heavy on anybody here. But let's just be honest. That's the level of our unwillingness to sacrifice. Can we just name it and be really honest? Like, there's this pearl. It's the most valuable pearl somebody's ever seen. There's this treasure in a field. It's like me, and I've like found this rubber tire full of checks. And it's like, But Sunday morning's kind of early. Do you think maybe there's a service some other time? And in the West, we just don't do, actually we do sacrifice. We just don't appreciate who and what we sacrifice to. And can I just say, like, you know, like Sunday morning is small. You know that it's going to cost you how you hang out, how you connect with people. Do you connect with people after having had a few too many? Do you connect with people, you know, over some unwholesome banter? You know, how do you connect with people? How do you have relationships with other people? What do you do with your time? Like, you know it's going to cost you. And the parables of the kingdom are like saying, number one, dude, it's worth it. It's worth it. Because number two, the kingdom is. And those who've accepted the kingdom are going to experience its blessing. And those who have rejected the kingdom are going to experience it as well. But it's going to be a bad experience for you. So this is typically where a preacher might say, are you ready to give everything? I'm not asking you if you're ready. The kingdom is like just doing it. The kingdom doesn't care if you're ready. No one's ready. Who's ready to give everything? I'm not ready. You know? No one's asking if you're ready. The kingdom is doing it. It's just doing it. And when we think about this, we're going to watch a video, and this is from The Chosen, right? And in our previous series in Luke Acts, about watching the disciples go from sort of people who knew about Jesus to following Jesus and that sort of thing, we talked about Peter and James and John and Andrew and this miraculous catch of fish, and it's enough for like a year's wages kind of thing. And Jesus provides for them, and Jesus asks these guys, come follow me. Now here's the thing, Peter has a wife. And so he's got to break the news to her. What might have that been like? This is an imagination of what that might have been like. So Catherine, if we could play. Brilliant. Here's why I played the clip. Like, it's one thing to choose to give it all and to like figure out what that even means. I love that. He's like, he told me I was going to fish for people. I don't even know what that means. But I'm in. The invitation from Jesus to follow and to participate in the kingdom. Like, I'm still figuring out what that means. I've been doing it for a while now. Pretty seriously. And I'm really fortunate, man. My choice to do that, my family, they're supportive. When I was like, I think following Jesus means moving to England. They're like, then you got to move to England. Joining the Church of England. If that's what he's calling you to do, then that's what you got. Yeah, that's a bit of a joke, just to lighten it up. And I know, like they feel it. They feel it. And if you're going to follow Jesus seriously, those who know you and love you, they're going to feel it. It's a big thing. When you talk about giving everything, we're talking about giving everything. And we're talking about figuring out what that means. We're talking about figuring out how that means together, because we need one another. This is in Luke chapter 9. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, that's Jesus, I'll follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He said to another man, follow me. But he replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I'll follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Jesus replied, no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. There's a lot more to unpack in each of those, but the point simply is the kingdom is like finding something awesome. Being like, that's cool. I want that. How much is it going to cost me? And then counting the cost, paying the cost, and having the kingdom. Having the loving, good, just, merciful, and gracious kingship of God. Having authority over your life. And having the promise that that ends really well. It won't be easy, but it ends really well. I'm not asking if you're ready. God's asking us to do that. However hard it is, it's a whole heck of a lot easier when we're doing it together. Amen? Amen. I'd like to invite the team up to lead us in some sung worship as we prepare for